conversations on Awaz-e-Haqiqat, which translates to the voice of truth, today or tonight, depending on whichever part of the world you're listening to me from. I'm going to talk about spoken word poetry, and the essence of storytelling. How does storytelling help us connect with each other? How do we share our stories, our journeys via storytelling, and mainly spoken word? And to talk more about that, I'm joined by a very special guest. I'm joined by Jashan, who uses spoken word poetry and storytelling as a way to share personal experiences, explore emotions, and connect with others. Through her performances, she hopes to create a sense of understanding and belonging, sparking conversations around mental health and human connection. Jashan is also the founder of Dostillery, a social club and events company dedicated to helping people form genuine friendships through creative workshops and gatherings. Inspired by her own journey of navigating loneliness and mental health challenges, Jashan built Dostillery to foster meaningful interactions in an increasingly disconnected world. In addition to her creative pursuits, Jashan also works full-time as an IT pre-sales consultant, balancing the technical problem solving with the creative in her personal life. On that note, a very, very good evening, Jashan. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm great, thank you. Thanks, and thanks for having me. I am very excited.
So am I, and it's all my pleasure that I could speak to you there. For our listeners, the first time I heard Jashan was for a women's Stella Awards night, and the way Jashan narrated her journey using her own experiences blew my mind. And that moment, I was like, I have to have this woman on the podcast. So thank you for being here.
You're very kind. Thank you.
Jashan, first things first is tell us a bit about your migrant journey, and what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you look back on all those years gone by?
So in terms of my journey, I come from India. So I was born in India in a very small village, and I'm a farmer's daughter and very proud of that. So I did my schooling in India and I did my college there. And then at the end of the college, I had an opportunity to go to England to study.
Right.
So that was a full scholarship. So I jumped on it. So yeah, that's where I think my migrant journey started for the first time, and I think it's about 12 years ago, or yeah. So it's been a long time. I've been away from home.
Yeah, it's definitely a long time.
Yeah, so that's where it started. That's where I got the taste of say being on my own. At that point in time, I thought like, oh, freedom or independence or whatever. But yeah, it came with its own challenges and growth. So and then I came to Australia to study further, and then been here. I think it's almost 9 years. So that's a long time as well. So now I call Australia my second home. Been here forever. So yeah. So it feels like in this one lifetime I've lived like many lifetimes, given my background and going away to study in England and then coming here, and then all the highs and lows as everyone experiences. I'm pretty sure as human beings we've signed up for this, so there's no escaping feeling the feels and highs and lows. So yeah, it's been great, the journey. As you already mentioned, it has been lonely at times, and I'm pretty sure all the migrants can relate to that feeling. And the word that comes to my mind, looking at all these years, probably going to be gratitude,
right,
for everything I went through, because it led to my growth as well. So highs were highs, lows were very low. But yeah, I wouldn't have imagined myself living the life that I live today and the things that I'm doing today. So yeah, it's gratitude. I had a vision for my life when I was a young kid, but obviously I didn't know if I was going to be able to make it. But yeah, here I am. So yeah, I think gratitude for everything.
It's so important that you mentioned that, Jashan, because I think I started doing that and I realized how you have to put an effort to remember to be thankful to the universe, because for me, it often slips through the cracks. I'm so busy, or we are so busy throughout the day, that the part of thanking someone, thanking the higher, often takes a back seat. But thank you for mentioning that. Storytelling, Jashan, when I heard you, the beautiful way by which you talked about your memories, that suitcase, what you brought in, what you brought out, that emotion through the words, that you were on the stage, but all of us could connect with you, right? How do you leverage that power of storytelling to make sure that somebody sitting in the audience can relate to you, can empathize with your journey, and you can also convey your message?
So since I was a kid, I may seem like I'm an extroverted person or anything like that, but I am extremely introverted at heart. So conveying my emotions or feelings has always been a little tough. So poetry, storytelling, spoken word was an escape. So, and also a way to convey my feelings. So I always I think I haven't said this out loud to people in my life, but if you are in my life and I haven't written a piece of poetry for you at a certain point in time, oh, I think we've got some work to do. Because we're not that close then, that I haven't done that for you. So yeah, it's a way for me to convey my emotions that I may not be able to or struggle to express directly. So I use storytelling as a bridge between my inner world and the outer world. And storytelling, I think it creates a safe space, a kind of mask, if you will. You can leave the audience guessing if it was from your own life or it was your observation. So it creates kind of that safe space where you may, you can probably relieve yourself from the fear of judgment. Oh, if I share about this topic, will there be judgment in there? So I think poetry and storytelling has that power where you can wear a mask. And it's up to you if you want to say it's inspired by true events or from your life or just your observation. So I think that's the power, that if there are sensitive topics from your life or from your observation of the life that you've seen others living, you can tell it through storytelling. So I think it gives the freedom to do that, and but they can still connect with the emotions and the themes. So as I said, we as human beings, we go through emotions. So and emotion is, I think, at the core of every human being. And if you are conveying an emotion through your storytelling, somebody out there will connect. So it's, I think, being just authentic in your storytelling when you tell that. So it's just really the power of storytelling to make the ideas and experiences relatable. For example, in that event that you just referring to, I knew most of the women out there have experienced that. And there was a high percentage of migrants in that audience as well. So somebody has taken a suitcase and come over here. So that's why I chose that particular piece to perform there, because I knew that would be relatable. So yeah, it's not about being loud or outgoing. It's just being honest in a way that resonates with others. So yeah, it's storytelling lets me connect without feeling overexposed.
Amazing.
But
Jashan, what happens is, you mentioned that you are an introvert by nature, right? For many of us introverts, I've heard this from people that they have a blog, right? They maintain a private blog where they kind of vent out their emotions or whatever they go through. What does it take for someone to transition that gap from privately documenting their emotions to getting on the stage, narrating a poetry where you are either your first person or the third person, and being there in front of an audience, relating something? How do you bridge that gap?
Yeah, I think it's personal preference, as you said. Like my story, I think I am a fan of journaling, so I journal almost every day. The day I don't, I feel like a bit hazy and not knowing what's going on. But yeah, as you said, like what's the difference, or what takes for someone to, go from one step further to actually go on stage and share the stories. I think so there are certain experiences in everyone's life that they want to share with others, but they have this fear of judgment. And that fear of judgment sort of handicaps you from going any further.
Right.
But if you've, like, for certain people, for personally me, I think I just put that perspective where, like, a fear of judgment. I feel like everyone who's going through this experience or relatable experience may feel the same thing. So it's finding the courage to go on and set an example so that you convey the message that even though there are other people who may not want to share that experience through storytelling or poetry or whatever medium they in public's eye or in front of other people, you just want to make them feel that they're not alone. So I think it's just really like based on how deeply or far you experienced those emotions, and how you want to make other people feel about that. You want to make them feel seen or heard, by finding that courage to go on and share that story. So as you mentioned, Dostillery as well. So it's to create those like small events, like at a very small, teeny tiny scale, to make them feel like seen and not feel so lonely. It's the same feeling when I go for storytelling. Just pick the topic, and the intention is just to make someone feel seen. And that, yeah, somebody has gone through a similar experience. That could be my experience that I'm narrating, or someone else's experience that I've observed. So, yeah, as an introvert, I think mostly sit there and, observe people. So, yeah, it's not always just my stories, it's stories all around. So, yeah.
Jashan, spoken word sometimes starts with the non-verbal communication, right? You emote and you express your words on pen and paper, and then you narrate it up.
Yeah.
How does non-verbal communication impact to enhance the meaning of your journey, or someone's journey for that matter?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to body language or non-verbal communication, I don't know if you've heard the rule of 55-38-7 formula. So yeah, it's 55% is like your non-verbal of your whole message. The meaning that you're conveying is through the non-verbal communication. And 38% is your voice. And 7% is only words. So if I've written some words and I'm just only conveying the words in same tone and not using any modulation in my voice, not going high or up, or not using gestures, or my body language is, restrictive, and or not aligned to what I'm saying, that message wouldn't be received as well. I think that's the, what you call it, that's the normal communication anyway. Like body language does play a lot of role in that. I think it plays the major part in how your communication is received. But with spoken word, sometimes to emphasize the meaning, you have to go sometimes louder at times, sometimes quieter, sometimes you repeat the same words over and over again. That's poetry, where you just, to highlight the impact or create that rhythm. You repeat certain words to make it sound better. So yeah, it does play a huge role. So if I'm conveying some happy piece, but my own non-verbal communication is like, my face is sad, I'm not smiling at all, or I'm not using my arms, or no gestures at all, probably you wouldn't be feeling as excited listening to that it wouldn't be that happy piece. And if I'm using sarcasm in a tone, if I'm not conveying that, I wrote a piece with sarcasm in mind, and I'm not conveying that in my tone, it might not be received as sarcasm, and the meaning would be lost. So I think, yeah, it becomes exaggerated.
Right.
The importance of voice and non-verbal communication as to how to use it.
Absolutely agreed. Speaking of your tone and non-verbal communications, you also spoke of mental health, and most of us migrant people, we've had our journey with mental health, right? Now, these are very sensitive topics. Most of us even hesitate to discuss about it in the open forum, right? But when you're putting it in spoken poetry or spoken word, what is a challenge when you talk about these sensitive issues through your spoken word?
Yeah, as I think, as again, like I was mentioning earlier, the major issue or thought process or bit of hesitation when it comes to sensitive topics is just the fear of judgment.
Yes.
Right. And if I say this, how would it be perceived? Right. The fear of judgment is kind of, chicken egg problem. So, so if I do it in an exercise, as I said earlier as well, like Jashan, if you feel the fear of judgment, that's the feeling that probably people sharing this experience are feeling as well. So would you want to take that charge for them to find some peace and comfort and relatability? So it's really, you go on and talk about it, and then that fear of judgment goes away for you and for others, or you just not take any action. And when it comes to sensitive topics, I think you need to be mindful of who you're talking to and what are the audiences like, because everybody's shaped by their experiences.
Yes.
And sometimes we do talk about in our community, especially like mental health is a taboo topic.
Yes.
We don't talk about it. It doesn't exist, right? Depression is something that you don't talk about, or it doesn't happen, right? It's just a feeling of just a sadness, just do go something and go do something, it'll go away. It doesn't exist. That's what our parents, our society, everyone tells us about that. You shouldn't, it's all in your head. That
correct.
So I think when approaching topics like those, you can't basically just push certain views on people. And I think that's where storytelling comes into picture. You can really leverage it to twist the story in a way that it creates an impact without making somebody feel that you're attacking or targeting them.
Right.
So, because you would know this, change doesn't happen in a day, right? Or change doesn't happen by just forcing people. People change when they want to change, or they do see that there's a problem with their perspective. And telling stories in that particular scenario would be quite useful. But yeah, I think you do need to be mindful of your audience's maturity and how to convey that message. I'm not a fan of just pushing my views onto someone and just say that this is what it is. I think everyone, like even today, we are now. I should just talk for myself. Probably when I was in India, I was growing up, I wasn't aware of mental health being a topic, right? Or being a thing that could impact somebody's life to this extent. As you go through life, as you expose yourself to these circumstances, or you see people around you acknowledging that kind of thing, only then you are able to change as well. So if I was, say, living in India, I was back home in the same circumstances, same social circle, I would probably be thinking somewhat similar to them as well. So I think we do need to be aware of that. don't like putting people down, because I do understand everyone's perspective and how they think.
Right.
So yeah, it's really being mindful of that. So when picking sensitive topics.
Absolutely. On that, the way you answer the question, Jashan, brings me into the segue of the next question I wanted to ask you, right? You're from India, we're not in Australia, so a lot of the South Asian cultural aspect is also important when we raise certain topics, or for example, when you are drafting something. The question that I wanted to ask is, what role does the cultural context play in interpreting spoken words?
Yeah. I think cultural context is important. So for example, if I am telling a story or doing a spoken word on, say, dowry,
Yeah.
it might not make any sense to Western culture because they don't know that and they don't do that. If I talk about child labor,
Right.
it would relate to everyone. They would be able to understand the emotion if I'm telling a story on child labor. But in context of, say, where child labor is not necessarily seen as a big issue.
Yes.
For example, in India, there is a huge problem of child labor. It's a whole system. I mean, when you try to unpack it, it's not as simple like, hey, put children into school and that's it. That's not how, it's not that simple, right? Same thing with, say, for example, Bangladesh. Children working in factories, same story.
Right.
So when you're telling a story about child labor, it would have more impact in those communities and they would understand what I'm saying in comparison to, say, I'm telling that to an Aussie person. They might not relate it to, because they have seen it as a problem ages ago and it's resolved, right? So I think, yeah, that way cultural context is pretty important. So there was this poem that I did, a spoken word, at Brown Women Poetry.
Yeah.
So it went like, stop dressing in a skirt that is so clearly so tight. Be easy on them. It's the mighty lust they trying to fight.
Right.
Oh, please, for God's sake, cover your legs to at least patriarchy's height, right? So this would have an impact on South Asian community, because even though patriarchy concept everyone can relate to, even Western world has seen that it is present there, but it's mostly impacted or still very much our community. So, and dressing in a skirt that's short is not a problem to this culture, but to our culture, for example. So it's really, I think it's important, and the whole meaning is changed how it's perceived. If you tell a story, if they don't relate to it, the whole point of poetry or spoken word or storytelling is to make people feel and make it relatable. So if they don't understand it, it's not gonna do anything for them. So yeah, cultural context is really, really important.
Agreed.
I guess plays a huge
But Jashan, what you mentioned, I agree with you. But just on the other side of the spectrum is, for example, if you're talking about dowry, let's say, to a crowd which doesn't practice dowry, right? Is it possible that through your spoken poetry, there is an awareness in that society that they come to know that, okay, this is a practice that needs to be addressed, in some part of the world, and probably we can do something about it. Has that ever occurred in your journey?
That's a very good point. So that's exactly right. So when I was talking about it, I was talking more from relatability perspective, but you have raised a very good point. So it's not just relatability, it's like about awareness as well. So there was in that Brown Women Poetry, there trying to remember her name. There was girl called Sabah Noor, and there was sorry, I'm forgetting the name, but they did a piece on at that point in time Palestinian stuff that was going on and still is. Yeah, I mean, it was very impactful, and it raised awareness. So yeah, that's another, I think, side of the coin, that it's relatability on one end where people will feel seen or heard, and it's on the other side of the coin is making more people aware of what's happening and raising issues on a wider platform that they otherwise might not be aware of. So
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Jashan. Now coming on to you as an individual who's had such a long journey, and you're kind of journaling and you recite these things. On a difficult day, Jashan, how do you take care of your mental health?
Oh, yeah, as you mentioned, journaling, number one. I'm a big journal person. So yeah, write it all out on a paper and forget about it. I like taking long walks. That helps.
Right.
I think solitude is really important for me when I'm having a difficult day. I just want to be on my own a little bit, process what's going on. Yeah, by writing and by taking long walks. Or I think the other side, sometimes if it's really tough, really difficult, it's absolutely fine to rot in bed as well on difficult days. Sometimes I do that as well. So yeah, that's fine. Once you've done that, after that you can bounce back. But yeah, so it's mixture of everything. Yeah.
And the last question before I let you go off to bed, Jashan, is what would be your message to our listeners?
Oh, I don't think I in a position to provide any message, but the only thing I would be saying is that be authentic in who you are, and make room or keep room for your own dreams, for your own personality and authenticity in your life. Put yourself first when you need to. As they say on airplanes, like when they say, like, oh, if in case of emergency, if the mask drops, put your mask on first. So it's a similar story, I think, especially for our South Asian community, especially for the women. We do tend to put everyone else need on about ours. So it's really just take that, give that a little bit of a break, give yourself the same amount of compassion and love that you give to others, and yeah, be authentic in doing so, because sometimes we do feel resentment inside, but we do it because we're expected to. I mean, you are here to live your life as well. You're an individual, so please take care of yourself and be authentic. And yeah, that's about it. And I think that's equally applicable to men as well, but it's I think you'd understand from South Asian community what I meant.
Absolutely, Jashan. Thank you so much. It was beautiful. And one last thing, where can we find you on social media?
I have Instagram. It's called JK Sandhu with double Y's in J and double Y's in K. And Sandhu SANDHU.
Yeah.
And same Dostillery can be found at Dostillery, which is spelled DOSTILLERY. So I think those two platforms or channels.
Thank you, Jashan. This was such an uplifting conversation to start the week. I've heard you, and to my listeners, I would really encourage you to go hear her or to attend any of Dostillery's upcoming events, because what Jashan narrates, you can empathize with it. It's as if she's narrating your own journey, if it's at a relevant issue that you can relate to her with. So please listen to her. This was a conversation on spoken word, poetry, and relatability on our journeys as migrant individuals. If you've heard us for the first time, I really hope that you had something to take away from Jashan's words, mental health, how she relates the journeys and puts it into beautiful words, which make a lot of meaning. And if you heard us for the first time, I really hope that you like the content that you've just heard. If you've got any feedback or thoughts, please write to me at awaz-e-haqiqat@gmail.com, or you can find me at YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. On that note, Jashan, thank you so much for giving me half an hour of your time on Sunday evening. I wish you all the best and hope we can get to hear more of you often.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thanks.